Our featured quartet from the evening, just back from a world tour where they have, yes, sung for the crowned heads of Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, a big warm welcome for Bustin' Loose.
Howdy.
Hey, wow, listen now. Here's some music Mama won't allow. Mama don't allow no mountain music here. Mama don't allow no mountain music here. We don't care what Mama don't allow. We like bluegrass anyhow. We're gonna do some bluegrass singing now. I like mountain music, good old mountain music, played by a real hillbilly band. When they play that rhythm, I just sway right with them. I think the melodies are grand. Mama don't allow no madrigal singing here. Mama don't allow no madrigal singing here. We don't care what Mama don't allow. We like madrigal anyhow. We're gonna do some madrigal singing now. La 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 la. Mama just wants some barbershop singing now. Right now, barbershop singing Mama will allow. Well, Mama has just one request. Sing the music she likes best. Mama wants some barbershop singing now. Those wild, wild women, those wild, wild women, they always try to make a wild man of me. Now no gal will ever make a fool of me. No, no gal, I mean what I say. I ain't the simpleton I used to be. This is how I got that way. Running wild, lost control. Running wild, mighty bold. Feeling gay, reckless too. Carefree mind all the time, never blue. I never blue. Always going, don't know where. Always showing, I don't care. Don't love nobody, it's not worthwhile. All alone, running wild, lost control. Running wild, mighty bold. Feeling gay, restless too. Carefree mind all the time, never blue. Always going, don't know where. Always showing, I'm always showing that I don't love nobody. It's not worthwhile. I'm all alone. You betcha. Running, 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 I'm running wild, running wild. Let's sing about it one more time. Running, 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 running wild, running wild.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure for Bustin' Loose to be here this evening. You know, we came in from Cincinnati about 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon and got the opportunity to drive around the town. Like how your town's laid out. I don't know how long it's been dead, but it's laid out real nice. I kind of like that, too. No, it's a pleasure for us to be here tonight. But, you know, wherever we go, we like to meet the people that we get to sing for. You know, you guys get to sit there and look at us and stare and make fun, whatever. But we'd like to meet you. So why don't we start right here in the front row? Why don't you stand up and tell us your name and where you're from? You're not going to stand up, are you? No. I'd like to introduce the individual members of the quartet right now. Paul, this is Marco. Hey, this is Paul. That's Tom.
Good to see you.
Nah, just kidding.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I know. On my left and your right, there's a very fine baritone, Mr. Tom Rouse from
Howdy, how you doing tonight?
Cincinnati, Ohio. Tommy? Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
On my right and your left is a very big bass singer. He's the newest member of the quartet. He's originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yes. Mr. Paul Ellingson, our bass singer. Paulie? Get out of here. Now, this next individual that I'm going to introduce has a very important part in this quartet. If you don't have this individual singing this particular part, you will not have a barbershop quartet. You're going to have a glee club, you're going to have whatever you want to have, Mitch Miller, I don't care, but you will not have a barbershop quartet. That is the tenor part, and that's my part. I'm Dale Fetick from Cincinnati, Ohio. Thank you. Marco Crager, our lead singer. He's from Buffalo. The rest of us are from normal parents.
I like that.
No,
pretty good.
Yeah, no, actually,
Leave it in.
see, Marco, he went on a 3-week diet, but the only thing he lost was 21 days. No, I'm sorry. That's not very nice to make fun of a guy who's being kept alive by a machine.
A machine?
The refrigerator. Come on back. Come here.
Making me feel bad.
Oh, you should. No, our lead singer, Mr. Marco Crager, he's from Dayton, Ohio. Mr. Marco Crager, our lead. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's going to tell you a cute little story, then the rest of us will be right back. Marco? Goodbye.
Thank you. I like this lady. Hi. You can do better than that. Hi. Oh, much gooder. How y'all doing tonight? Having a good time? Yeah, so am I. This is fun, isn't it? I gotta tell you about these 3 gentlemen that not so awful long ago they passed away. And of course they went to heaven, you know, and they were met at the pearly gates by none other than St. Peter himself. You know, they were really impressed. So St. Peter tells these 3 gentlemen that before they come into heaven, they have to correctly answer a question. So they said, okay, that ought to be easy enough, you know. And first gentleman steps up, and St. Peter says, sir, the question for you is how many seconds are there in a year? Well, this guy, he's just floored. He has no idea. And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't even take a wild guess." And St. Peter says, "Sir, I'm sorry, you cannot come into heaven." So the second gentleman steps up, and he says, "Sir, are you sure you understand the rules to come into heaven, that you have to correctly answer a question?" The gentleman said he understood that. St. Peter says, "All right, the question for you is exactly the same as it was for the other gentleman. How many seconds are there in a year?" Well, this guy, he's pretty slick. He pulls out a calculator, you know. He punches in all these numbers, and he comes up with an answer about that long, looks up at St. Peter, tells him his answer, and St. Peter says, "Sir, I'm sorry, but that is incorrect. You cannot come into heaven." So the third gentleman steps up, and he was kind of a down-and-out guy, you know, that kind of found in an alley downtown, you know what I mean? And he steps up, and St. Peter says, "Sir, are you sure that you understand the rules to come into heaven, that you have to correctly answer a question?" Well, this old boy looks up at St. Peter, and he goes, "Yeah, I do." St. Peter says, "All right, sir, the question for you is exactly the same as it was for the other two gentlemen. How many seconds are there in a year?" Well, this old boy, he stepped back and scratched his head, and he looked up at St. Peter, and he says, "Well, I think there's 12. St. Peter says, 12? How can you possibly get 12 seconds in a year? He said, "Well, there's January 2nd, and there's February 2nd, and there's..." God, what is this? Stephen, God, you guys are ugly. Thank you, sir.
Mother dear, oh mother, send a lovely daughter. Don't go in the lion's cage tonight. Oh no. A mother once she had a lovely daughter. The mother was an actress on the stage. Yes, on the stage. She traveled with a group of well-trained lions, and each night she went in the lion's cage. Lion's cage. One day the daughter had a premonition. She was scared that everything that night would not go right. Would not go right. That day she told her mother in the kitchen,
Don't touch me.
"Please don't go in the lion's cage tonight. No, not tonight. Oh, don't go in the cage tonight, Mama darling, for the lions look ferocious and they bite. Oh, those devils, they bite. And when they get their angry fists, they will tear you all to bits. So don't go in the lion's cage tonight." The mother heeded not the daughter's warning. Warning, warning. But to her turned and softly said, "Pooh-pooh, pooh-poo. I think I ought to know what I am doing. What I'm doing when I'm around the lions. I'll feel so blue." That night when she was dancing in the lion's cage, the lions thought that they would like to eat, 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 eat. And as they bit the darling mother's head off,
Sound effects.
clean off. These words came back to her so pure and sweet. They said, "Oh, don't go in the cage tonight, Mama darling, for the lions look ferocious and they bite. And when they get their angry fists,
Don't you brush your teeth after every meal?
so don't go in the lion's cage tonight, sweet mama. Had you used your ears instead, then you wouldn't have lost your head. Why did you go in the lions?
You hit me with that thing.
Ain't gonna hurt nothing.
Hurt, man.
Is your face hurt?
It's killing me.
Killing me too.
It's my only solo. All right.
Thanks. Hey, how many of you remember when streaking was all the rage? Well, you know, I have a beautiful grandmother who resides in a retirement home in Chicago, and we correspond on a frequent basis, and she wrote me a letter a couple of weeks ago, and it started out, it said, "Dear Tom, a friend of mine and I were sitting on the front porch the other day, and I'll tell you what, we were backgammoned out, we were bridged out, we were shuffleboarded out, we were bored to tears." So my friend said, now I'm reading this in the letter from my grandmother, my friend said, "Tonight, when the sun goes down, let's take off all our clothes and we'll streak right past those two guys sitting in the rocking chairs." And my grandmother thought that was an outstanding idea. So you know what? That night, just like every other night, the sun went down and they took off all their clothes and zoom went the first one. Well, the second one was a little older and it took her a little longer. Zoom, and she's gone. Well, these guys are sitting there and one of them said, "Hey, Fred, did you see what I just saw?" Fred says, "I don't know. Tell me what you saw and I'll see." He says, "Well, I think I just saw two old ladies run right past here." And Fred says, "Yep, that's what I saw." And he said, "Well, tell me something, Fred. What were they wearing?" Fred thought for a minute. He said, "I don't know, but whatever it was sure needed to be ironed." Thank you.
No, there's a vote. There's a vote.
I know Monday you're going to be telling that joke at the office, right? Well, tell them where you got it.
There's a voice that beckons me from far across the sea. Say, can't you see, there I must be to fight for liberty. It makes me cry to say goodbye. The words so hard to find, so I'll sing a song for Mary mine, the girl I leave behind. I'll sing one more for Mary, and then be on my way. Tomorrow's dawn means I'll be gone, but will return someday. I pray. I'll bring once more a little joy to one who is so kind. I'll sing a song for Mary mine, the girl I leave behind.
sing a song for Mary, mine. The girl I I heard a robin this morning, I'm feeling happy today. Gonna pack my cares in a whistle and blow them all away. What if I've been unlucky, really having nothing? There's a time I always feel happy as a king. When the red, red robin comes bombing along, along, there'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his old sweet song. Wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh, and be happy. What if I've been blue now? I'm walking through fields of flowers. Rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song. When the red, red robin comes bobbing along. Wake up, you sleepyhead. Get up, get out of bed. Cheer up, the sun is red. Live, love, laugh, and be happy. What if I've been blue? Now I'm walking through fields of flowers. Rain may glisten, but still I listen more hours and hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song.
I knew it worked.
Get your money back for that. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a beautiful place. You're very lucky. Beautiful auditorium. As Dale mentioned earlier, I'm from Minnesota originally. Been living in Cincinnati for about 4 years. And as much as I hate to admit it, the people up in Minnesota are a little weird. Anybody that loves winter, and I must include myself, has got to be a little weird. And I've got 2 uncles living up in Minneapolis that are very competitive. And everything they do is snowmobiling, snow skiing, bobbing for French fries, no matter what they do, super competitive. Well, they decided, you know, this isn't working. We need to get along a little bit better. We need to do something we enjoy that isn't competitive. So they decided they're going to try a little skydiving. You know, skydiving, that can't be competitive. So they go up and they're in this little Cessna airplane at about 5,000 feet for their very first lesson. And the instructor is standing there, and Ole and Sven, naturally, sitting there in the seat, and the instructor says, now, this is how it's done, okay? This is all that's to it. You got a ripcord right here, and you got a harness release right here. And what you do, you jump out the plane, you count to 10. When you get to 10, you pull the ripcord, and your chute will open up, and you'll float to the ground, and you'll just have a good old time. And to keep the wind from blowing you across the field, you hit your harness release, and that'll make your parachute come off. You understand, Ole? Yeah, I understand. You understand, Sven? Yeah, I understand, too. Let's go. Let's do it. So Ole jumps out the plane, and he's falling down through the sky. He's counting 7, 8, 9, 10, and he pulls his ripcord. His chute opens up. He's floating down, just having a good old time. And Sven's up in the plane. He jumps out, and he counts 7, 8, 9, 10. His harness comes off, his parachute comes off, and he's just tumbling down through the sky. And here's Ole floating down, having a good time. And here comes Sven. He says, you won the race, huh? Well,
Ladies and gentlemen, Bustin Loose's rendition of the all-night Western.
You get a smaller head or a bigger hat, will you?
You truly are a fathead, aren't you? Here's your note.
Bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba.
I dropped down in my easy chair and turned on channel 2. A bad gunslinger named Salty Sam was chasing poor Sweet Sue. He trapped her in the old sawmill and said with an evil laugh, "If you don't give me the deed to your ranch, I'm gonna saw you all in half." Yeah.
And he grabbed her.
Help, he's grabbing me!
And he's tying her up.
Help, he's tying me up!
And he's turning on the buzzsaw.
He's turning on the buzzsaw!
And then
Long came Jones, long tall Jones, slow walking Jones, slow talking Jones. Along came a long, lean, lanky Jones. Commercial came on, so I got up to fix myself a snack. You should have seen what was going on by the time that I got back. Down in an old abandoned mine, Sweet Sue was having fits. She said, "If you don't give me the deed to your ranch, I'm gonna blow you all to bits."
Give me that hat. These guys are getting blinded out here. I need to put this back on.
I'm gonna blow you all to bits. Yeah.
And he grabbed her.
Help, he's grabbing me again!
And he's tying her up.
Help, he's tying me up to the same rope he used last time. Makes my wrist burning, it's my nose running, my sinuses hurting. Generally, I just feel bad all over.
Look bad all over.
And he's lighting the fuse to the dynamite.
He's lighting the fuse to the... He's lighting the fuse to the... He's lighting the fuse to the... Dynamite! Hey, hey!
Get over here.
And then
Long came Jones, long tall Jones, slow walking Jones, slow talking Jones. Along came long, lean, lanky Jones. I got so bugged I turned it off and turned on another show. But there was the same old shoot 'em up and the same old rodeo. Salty Sam was trying to stuff Sweet Sue in a burlap sack. He said, "If you don't give me the deed to your ass, I'm gonna tie you to the railroad track." Yeah.
And he grabbed her.
Help, he's grabbing me for the thrice time!
Thrice.
Oh, I get it. 1, 2, 3. That's terrible.
And he's throwing her on the railroad track.
No, he's tying me up, he's tying me up, he's tying me up, he's tying me up. Don't tie me up first.
He
I think
tied
he
her
tied me up first. He ties me up.
And he tied her up.
Yes, thank you. No, not there. Help me tie me up in the same rope he used last time and the time before that.
It's a rhythm thing. Once you get started, you can't stop.
Help me stand me up in the same rope we used last time and the time before that. Makes me rich, bum rich, my nose running, my sinuses hurt, my head is small, so bugged, and I got halitosis, I got athlete's feet, and I think I'm pregnant.
Get away.
And he's throwing her on the railroad track.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! It's so cool. There's a thing here. Oh, if I go, you go.
Oh, okay. I'll stop. And there's a train coming.
A train! Whatever else could go wrong?
And then again, maybe I won't. You ugly.
Shut up.
You ugly.
Shut up.
And then along came Jones, Long John Jones, slow walking Jones. Slow talking Jones.
Onions.
Along came long, lean, lanky Jones. Along came long, lean, lanky Jones. Along came long, lean, lanky Jones.
All right. Get out of here. Well, it's my turn to kill some time, so... The old ones never die, do they? They just get recycled or whatever. Well, it's the time of the show that we must say goodnight. It's been a blast. We always have a good time. There's a lot of things going on up here that we just... we seem to have more fun than the people in the audience do. I don't know why that is. We're just kind of... I don't know. It's kind of strange, but we just, we're like everybody else, and they let us out on weekends, and they let us go crazy, which is nice. We have to go right back Monday morning, which is a real drag, you know. But no, it's been great for us to be here this evening. You know, we're all members of chapters in the Cincinnati and Dayton area, and if any of you gentlemen out there would like to partake of some of this craziness up here, you can, I'm sure, check with one of the guys in the chorus, and they'd be glad to have you over for a guest evening. But it's been great, and we thank you, and we'd like to do one more song. Stop. Thank you. Well, we'd like to leave you with this. If you enjoyed us this evening, we're busting loose, and if you didn't, we're the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Thank you.
Oh, Coney Island was born round a lake. See her on the boardwalk every day. Soap suds all around, dirty bubbles on the ground. Rub it up, 3 men in a tub, all those tunes she's found. Thimbles on her fingers make a noise. Charleston on the landing for the boys. Seeking ragged tunes, sing a song, as easy breezes blow along. Coney Island was born round a lake. Boing, lot-a-dee-lee, lot-a-day, lot-a-dee-lee, lot-a-day, lot-a-dee-lee, lot-a-dee-lee, lot-a-dee-dee-day. Hey! Lot-a-dee-lee, lot-a-da-da-da, bong, 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 bong-a-lee-lee, lot-a-da-da-da, bong, bong, bong. She'll rag a tune right through the knees, a brand new pair of DVDs. Coney Island was born round the lake. Coney Island was born round the lake, oh, little lady. Coney Island was born round the lake, ba-da-ba-da-da. Coney Island was born round the lake, we really mean it. Coney Island was born round the... Coney Island was born round the lake, wah, 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 wah. Coney Island was born round the lake, wah, 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 wah. Coney Island was born round the lake. That's the song we could sing.
Thank you. job, guys. Great job.
Is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight in Washington, Ted Koppel.
Good evening. In the sweltering heat and humidity of Houston, President Bush is hosting his first economic summit and finding significant disagreements between himself and the leaders of America's 6 main industrial allies. The disagreements are about agricultural subsidies, global warming, and what kind of help to give Mikhail Gorbachev. White House correspondent Britt Hume reports from Rice University.
These economic summits were originally conceived as an annual chance for heart-to-heart talks among leaders under no pressure for grand agreements. But they have now evolved into ceremonial extravaganzas involving enormous expense and massive news coverage. As a result, there must be at least a pretense of major progress.
Together we're called upon as allies and as friends to work toward decisions here in Houston that will bring a new stability and prosperity to the world.
There are no profound divisions separating President Bush and his guests here, but there are some disagreements on which they will want to show progress. Their meetings today, for example, focused on agriculture. France's Mitterrand and others in Europe don't want to ditch the huge farm export subsidies that make it hard for U.S. and other farmers worldwide to sell products abroad. The dispute has stalled the current round of international trade talks in Uruguay, and the president would like a summit commitment to push those talks forward. In addition, Germany's coal is intent on pumping money into the comatose Soviet economy, partly to sweeten for Moscow the bitter pill of German unification. Mrs. Thatcher and President Bush think it's a bad idea, won't do it themselves, but won't stand in the way. All the leaders are under pressure to do more to protect the environment. And the U.S. environmental lobby is almost an 8th delegation here.
The United States is 5% of the world's population, and yet we emit 25% of CO2.
They pass as journalists to get into press briefings, then use the opportunity to brief reporters themselves. They also hold their own news conferences where they plug the issue of global warming. The Bush administration gets low marks on that subject, since it won't go along with coal and the West Germans' idea of international limits on emissions of so-called greenhouse gases. The most difficult of these issues is agriculture. Farmers in every country, including the U.S., have come to depend to some extent on government subsidies and trade protection. Getting rid of them might mean freer trade worldwide, but that's a long-run benefit, not necessarily appealing to leaders who must face re-election in the short run. Britt Hume, ABC News, Houston.
As if to underscore what a sensitive issue ending farm subsidies is, some Texas farmers with 2 longhorn steer in tow demonstrated at the summit today. The heads of state, however, are well aware that the farmers are just one part of an enormously complex puzzle. ABC's Stephen Ogg reports.
This field of grain in Europe may not seem to have much to do with this factory making pipeline valves in Texas. But they are both caught up in a complicated web of trade restrictions that world leaders are trying to untangle. The Houston factory has to compete with cheaper counterfeit valves made in third world nations. And many of those developing countries say they will not honor foreign patents until industrial nations, mainly the Europeans and Japan, stop protecting their own farmers and import more agricultural products from the third world. The argument over agricultural trade barriers has stalled worldwide trade negotiations that have been going on for 4 years.
If we are unable to break the impasse between the European community and the exporting nations, we might have 40 nations walk from these talks.
The Europeans argue that they need to subsidize their 10 million farmers just to keep them in business.
It can never be accepted as a message would be given to the European farmers that finally no support whatsoever could be expected anymore.
The Bush administration wants to phase out agricultural subsidies over 10 years to get the trade talks going again. That could persuade developing nations to allow more foreign investment and trade in services like accounting, insurance, and banking, where American firms excel. At stake is more than $1 trillion worth of trade.
If the global trade talks were to fail, then the world trading system could begin to disintegrate. That would mean a loss of jobs in this country and elsewhere as markets around the world begin to shrink.
Participants in the world trade talks have set a deadline of next December for reaching an agreement. Some analysts say a push from the leaders here at the summit could be the last hope for reaching an agreement on time. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Houston.
As Britt Hume reported, the Western leaders are divided over the issue of economic aid to the Soviet Union. In Moscow, where the Soviet Party Congress is still underway, there is no unanimity either. Here's ABC's Jim Lowry.
In the halls outside the party Congress, there was talk of Western economic aid, but a difference of opinion. Conservative politicians tend to approve. Help from a friend when we're in need is a good thing, says Russian hardliner Ivan Polishkov. Others disagree.
You see, we are not a third world country. We are not after any kind of economic aid in that conventional term.
In fact, economists here believe even billions of dollars would do little good. It could buy hard-pressed consumers more goods, but most of it would be wasted by inefficient, centralized bureaucracies.
Almost all of that money will go down the drains.
Economists like Alexei Izumov suggest the West wait until there is real movement toward a market economy. Aid now might actually set back Gorbachev's plans for reform.
The massive aid, unconditioned assistance, will play directly into the hands of conservatives, because that will help centralized economy structures to survive longer.
So if not money now, what does Gorbachev want? Apparently just about what President Bush has proposed. Experts to teach the Soviets how to build a free market economy and a promise of financial aid when it begins to work. Jim Lowry, ABC News, Moscow.
Mikhail Gorbachev won an important victory at the Communist Party Congress today when it voted to revise the makeup of the party's ruling Politburo. The new Politburo will include members from all 15 Soviet republics, more in tune with Gorbachev's reform than the Russians, who have dominated the body in the past. In Tirana, 51 Albanian refugees have been allowed to leave the Czechoslovak embassy and fly out of the country. They are the first of nearly 6,000 Albanians who started moving into the embassies a week ago, more than half of them in the West German embassy alone. In Eastern Europe, only Albania remains with a hardline communist government. There is also word that 2 Albanians trying to cross the border to Greece were shot and killed by Albanian border guards. In a moment, the nation's newest and most restrictive abortion bill. Louisiana's governor says he'll think it over. And later in the broadcast, how disease and death have become a legacy of the Cold War for America's Navajo Indians. And barbershop quartets, foursomes, facing off in San Francisco.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by the Ford Motor Company.
Ford profiles in quality, reliability.
The quality of today's Fords, Lincolns, and Mercurys is no accident. It's engineered into every car and truck we build. We bump before you bump. We open and close. We brake, we shake, we get in and get out. We freeze, we start. When your goal is to build the highest quality cars and trucks in the world, you don't do it any other way.
At Ford, Mercury, and Lincoln, quality is job one.
Years ago, I fell rushing to work and really hurt my ankle. My doctor recommended the pain reliever in prescription Motrin. Today, he recommends Motrin IB for pain.
Motrin IB. No prescription needed.
When work gives me a pounding headache, Motrin IB has the strength I need.
One Motrin IB is as effective as 2 regular-strength Tylenol.
My headaches simply stop, and it's much gentler on my stomach than aspirin.
Motrin IB, doctor-recommended pain relief.
It's the toughest abortion bill in the country, and it was jammed through the Louisiana legislature last night after a weekend of frantic lobbying and political maneuvering by anti-abortion forces. The new bill was designed to satisfy Governor Buddy Roemer, who vetoed an even tougher abortion measure last Friday. Now the question is, will Roemer go along? He's not so sure, as ABC's Linda Patillo reports.
Speaker.
At the 11th hour, Louisiana lawmakers took a bill on flag burning and turned it into the most restrictive abortion legislation in the nation. It would punish doctors with up to 10 years in prison if they perform abortions except for victims of rape or incest or to save a woman's life.
And a copy of House Bill 1331.
The bill's passage was so confusing and chaotic, there weren't even copies available until late today. Even the governor had not seen it, but he was raising lots of questions.
Now's the time to be calm and take a long look. Step in the right direction. But is it a high enough step? Is it a constitutional step? Is it something that I could sign? I'm not sure yet.
The governor has 20 days to act. If he vetoes the bill, the legislature can override him. If he does nothing or signs it, it will become law in September. Anti-abortion forces are claiming a victory.
With this, we can at least save 90% of the unborn babies in Louisiana.
Abortion rights activists are outraged by the last-minute maneuvering.
You know, this is good old boy politics at its finest, and I'm really embarrassed for the state.
Louisiana was the last chance this year for the national anti-abortion movement to find a test case to challenge the right to abortion. But the question is whether it was so hastily drawn and technically flawed that it will have little chance of making it to the Supreme Court, even if it becomes law. Linda Patillo, ABC News, Baton Rouge.
We'll take a longer look at that story tonight on Nightline. In Chicago, a potentially precedent-setting court case is underway over a matter, literally, of life and death. At issue, whether a child can be compelled to donate bone marrow to keep his half-brother alive. Here's ABC's Chris Bury.
Jean-Pierre Boza, age 12, likes to shoot baskets, but he tires easily. 2 years ago, he was stricken with leukemia. Now he needs a bone marrow transplant.
The best thing that could happen to me, that we find a donor, and fast.
The most compatible donors may be his half-brother and half-sister. The 3-year-old twins have the same father as Jean-Pierre, but a different mother. The father, Tomas Boza, wants an Illinois judge first to order a blood test and then an operation if the twins are found to be suitable bone marrow donors.
I don't want to harm anyone. I just want to save Jean-Pierre's life.
But the twins' mother, who has full custody, refuses to allow the procedure. Her lawyers claim Boza abandoned the children at birth.
And now, 3.5 years after they're born, he steps up to say that she should be forced to put them under a medical or surgical procedure when there's nothing wrong with them, when they're perfectly healthy.
In bone marrow transplants, doctors typically use needles to remove liquid marrow from hip bones of donors who are under anesthesia.
The only risks are those of general anesthesia, and even those are very, very uncommon.
However minor the medical risks, this case raises a major legal question. Can a court compel someone to undergo a medical procedure in order to help another person?
I think the likelihood is poor.
Law professor Stephen Lubet says such a ruling could create chaos.
If a court today could order one of these children to give bone marrow over the parent's objection, what would prevent a court next week from ordering a healthy citizen to donate a kidney?
While the lawyers argue their cases, Jean-Pierre hopes that another donor can be found. His disease may not wait for the courts to decide. Chris Bury, ABC News, Chicago.
Another embarrassment for NASA. 2 veteran shuttle astronauts, Robert Hoot Gibson and David Walker, have been grounded for violating flight safety rules. Gibson ignored regulations and took part in an air race in Texas over the weekend. He was involved in a collision in which another pilot was killed. No word on what grounded Walker. In a moment, a new twist in the savings and loan scandal and the key player who refused to testify on Capitol Hill.
Now fight dryness every time you wash your face with this amazing new cleanser, Pond's Facial Cleansing Foam. It's not a cream or a soap. This Pond's is a light, refreshing foam, a facial cleansing foam that cleans gently, cleans thoroughly, yet won't dry your skin like soap can. For softer, smoother skin, new Pond's Facial Cleansing Foam. It cleans like no soap can.
Piloting a corporate jet for Dow can be interesting and rewarding, particularly when it's an Angel flight. The corporate Angel network uses empty seats on company business trips to fly cancer patients who need specialized treatment. Patients like Christy. Dow was the first to make over 100 of these flights.
Welcome aboard, Angel.
This company does great things. This is one of them.
Dow lets you do great things.
If you could taste time, the sun, rain, tradition, this is what it would taste like every time. With a name like Smucker's, it has to be good.
When constipation strikes, you feel bloated, twisted. You just can't go on. You want fast medicine. X-Lax, to put you back on top of the world. Fast. X-Lax, the right medicine.
The central characters in the latest savings and loan saga were no-shows on Capitol Hill this morning. This chapter of the story has a twist. It's not about bankers whose institutions have collapsed, but about a businessman who was supposed to be one of the rescuers. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
Senator Metzenbaum was very angry. The people he really wanted at today's hearing didn't show up.
Never since I've been in the Senate have I witnessed such a vigorous effort to prevent a committee from proceeding forth on an issue.
Among the no-shows was James Fail, an Arizona insurance executive guaranteed a federal subsidy of $1 billion to help his takeover of several insolvent Texas S&Ls in 1988.
These documents reveal that James Fail's bid cost the taxpayer nearly $100 million more than a competing bid.
According to the senator, Fail invested a mere $1,000 of his own money and $60 million in loans from insurance companies he controls in order to create Bluebonnet Savings and Loan from 15 failed thrift institutions. Moreover, Metzenbaum suggests that Robert Thompson, a lobbyist and former assistant to then Vice President Bush and President Reagan, greased the wheels in Washington for the deal with M. Danny Wall, former chairman of the Federal Home Loan Bank Board. And in return, Thompson was loaned nearly $500,000 by Bluebonnet and one of Fail's insurance companies, including $350,000 to purchase this Capitol Hill townhouse.
Is it unusual that Robert Thompson's single townhouse mortgage represents over 25% of all mortgage loans Bluebonnet made last year?
Metzenbaum now plans to subpoena Fail, Thompson, Wall, and others invited today who didn't make an appearance.
Bluebonnet's attorney accused Metzenbaum of behaving like a political vigilante. That isn't likely to discourage him. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials gained about 9 points to close at 29.14. Trading was very slow. When we return, the fight to compensate American victims of the Cold War.
Over time, everything changes, from your hair and clothes to your eating habits. Of course, these changes can be for the better. And new Fleischmann's Extra Light can be one of them. It has 0 cholesterol, as well as 50% less fat, salt, and calories than margarine. In fact, no spread is lower in saturated fat. So if you're going to make a change, make it one for the better with new Fleischmann's Extra Light.
The thing about roads is they often come with bumps. The thing about the Infiniti Q45 Performance Luxury Sedan is it comes with all the amenities. Lots of bumps, all the amenities. It's a bump when you don't even feel it.
I was eating a cheeseburger when I saw I had a runaway car. It was a Maalox moment. Thank heaven Maalox Plus is so strong.
Easy, boys. She's purring like a kitten.
Maalox Plus, strong relief for all your Maalox moments.
This is unbelievable. I can't believe it.
These Publishers Clearinghouse winners couldn't believe they won until they cashed their checks. Now you can win $10 million if you enter our new sweepstakes fast.
An old man like me might be able to retire one of these days.
We'd heard Century 21 people were the best, and Janet was proof.
Don't worry, we'll make your home stand out in the market.
She always handled the details, so we never had to worry.
Relax, I'll call the bank.
Janet, she never stopped working.
We'd like to sell your home to an out-of-town buyer.
She really cared. So when friends ask my advice, I tell them, call the Century 21 office.
Don't forget this.
It's the only place you'll find people like Janet.
Century 21.
When the Senate reconvenes tomorrow, among the first bills on which it will vote is one to compensate some unexpected casualties of the Cold War. As hundreds of Navajo Indians are discovering, the deadly toll was not always exacted by unseen enemies a world away, but by their own government here in Washington. Here's ABC's Ken Kashiwahara.
The painted desert of the American Southwest, home of the Navajo Indians, whose tradition teaches reverence for the land which provides food, water, shelter, and life. But today, the drumbeat of life has turned into a death knell. Near abandoned uranium mines, a Geiger counter picks up sounds of radiation, a legacy of the Cold War that the Navajos believe caused disease and death at the hands of the U.S. government. In the 1950s and 60s, 15,000 Navajo and white men worked in uranium mines, producing fuel for nuclear weapons and plants. The federal government was the sole purchaser of the uranium. Documents show the government knew about the radiation danger and had the power to regulate mine safety, but chose not to. The mines had no ventilation, the miners no protection.
They exceeded something like 1,000 times the limit of radiation. And comparing that, that's something like lying under an X-ray table for 6 months.
Cato Johnson, who worked in the mines for 7 years, says miners inhaled radioactive dust 8 hours a day, drank contaminated water, never knowing they were in danger.
They didn't tell us it was going to hurt us. They didn't tell us. So now the people that are working here is all gone.
More than 400 of those uranium miners have died of lung cancer, 5 times the normal death rate. Dr. Victor Archer, who worked for the U.S. Public Health Service in the 50s, says his agency warned the Atomic Energy Commission that the radiation could produce an epidemic of lung cancer, recommending the mines be ventilated.
They were urgently needing uranium for national defense purposes, so they didn't want anything to interrupt the flow of uranium.
Nothing did. The commission demanded secrecy. The miners were not told of the danger. Today, families of the miners blame the U.S. government for not warning them. Alberta Kane says the death of her father was unnecessary.
They knew that it was unsafe and it was dangerous, and that one day, it would take, my dad away.
But miners weren't the only victims. Betty Clark grew up near the uranium mine where her father worked. Her mother washed her father's radioactive clothes. Their house was built with radioactive stones from the mine.
Look at this.
Both her father and mother died from lung cancer, she says. Her sons have health problems. Her granddaughter was born retarded. Stuart Udall, the former Secretary of the Interior, has filed lawsuits on behalf of the miners, only to be told that the federal government cannot be sued.
I think the whole thing raises the issue. What does this government do in our country when we kill innocent people? That's the moral issue.
It is an issue now in the hands of Congress, which is considering a bill that would offer the nation's apology and compensate uranium miners or their families up to $100,000.
This won't make up for what happened, but at least it's a recognition that the government's admitting that that something needed to be done.
Congress may be the best and last hope for the miners. Nearly a quarter century after they stopped mining uranium for bombs, many Navajos continue to contract lung cancer. Others worry that they may be next. So while the Cold War with communist countries may be ending, it continues to claim American victims. Ken Kashiwahara, ABC News.
When we come back, the thrill of victory and the harmony of defeat.
But also neat and sweet Georgia Brown.
There's really no comparison.
It's so obvious.
Are you kidding? America's coffee drinkers are discovering that Maxwell House Instant looks more like fresh ground coffee than these instant coffee crystals.
What are those crystals anyway?
Smells good. Maxwell House is blended with Colombian beans. It looks, smells, and tastes
like fresh ground.
It is good.
Maxwell House Instant. Everything about it says
fresh ground taste.
The 90s are here, and so is a way to explore new horizons. Introducing the new four-door Explorer from Ford. Explore an interior with more room than any competitor. Explore its exclusive push-button four-wheel drive. Explore its 4-liter V6 power. Discover new four-door Explorer from Ford.
Have you driven a Ford lately?
You know it's time for Anacin when the pain gets so bad you can't think about anything except getting rid of that headache. Sometimes it's so bad I don't feel like putting up with the cat, the kids, or the man I married.
When the pain of a stress headache has you stretched to the limit, Anacin relieves the pain fast.
So I take a couple and pretty soon my headache's going. It's like I can feel the Anacin going right to where I hurt. Anacin gets to the pain before it gets to you.
Tonight on Nightline with Ted Koppel, the struggle is bitter. The outcome has national importance. The fight in Louisiana over a bill to roll back abortion rights. Tonight.
And finally tonight, by now everybody should know that Sweden's Stefan Edberg won tennis's prestigious Wimbledon title yesterday, and that West Germany took soccer's ultimate honor, the World Cup. Our own Charlie Murphy spent his Sunday enjoying another world-class competition, one that was somehow overshadowed by those other contests in England and Italy.
To left feet, but also neat and sweet Georgia Brown. They all sigh and want to die for its...
This is the second edition Best Barbershop Quartet in 1989, taking you on a musical tour of San Francisco. 51 other quartets are tuning up vocal pipes for the 1990 title. On escalators, in hotel lobbies, wherever they can find a foursome.
A bass looking for a baritone lead in the tenor.
1890 was a big year for barbershop, not 1990. Isn't it a little out of date?
If it were out of date, we wouldn't have 9,500 people here to help celebrate.
Nearly that many turned out for a sing-along in Union Square. Where do all these people come from?
Minnesota, Ohio.
Okay. But the judges didn't care where they came from, as long as they kept to that old-style harmony. At the finals, judges chose as 1990 champs the Acoustics of Dallas.
Oh boy, policemen say, how do you?
Back at the hotel, they jammed till midnight.
I'm gonna sail up on that.
San Francisco didn't shake, rattle, or roll, but it had some nice harmonic vibrations. Charles Murphy, ABC News, San Francisco.
Duly noted. That's our report on World News tonight. I'm Ted Koppel. Have a good evening. I'll be back later on Nightline. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News, where more Americans get their news than from any other source.